Okay, so in like food photography, there is, when you look at my work, I try to evoke emotion. I think this now comes from my background as an industrial designer. I'm thinking about the end user. I'm not just putting the plate there, setting up the lights and taking a picture.
Yeah.
I'm trying to create a feeling. So I think the thing that sets me apart is that I really focus on how you're going to feel when you're looking at that bowl of pasta. Like, are you sitting next to the window or are you at the dining table? I try to recreate those scenes that you would have at home so that you can imagine yourself eating that bowl of pasta.
Yeah.
And it not just being a pretty picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of psychology that
There
goes
is.
behind food. So don't blame me, please. Do not blame me.
Yeah.
People like Sylvia are just behind there, making sure I eat it. I am so excited for this episode of The Millionaire Mind because our guest today has what I would call a dream career because she works with food, and that is fantastic. But before we get into that, my name is Turife, and welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, Sylvia.
Thank you, thank you.
So please introduce yourself and what you do.
And my name is Sylvia Dumtai. I'm a Nairobi-based food and product photographer, as well as a content creator and food stylist. So I do wear many hats, but basically I'm a food creative.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how exactly do you get into food photography or creating content around food?
Well, number one, you have to have a passion for food, I guess.
Yeah.
Long story short, I wanted to be a chef. I didn't go to school to train as a chef, but when I was in university, I worked in kitchens, in restaurants. So I always fed my passion for working with food. So I think, having an interest for it is the most important, and being passionate about it. Yeah, and at the end of the day, everybody needs food and people need to market. So yeah.
Okay. So before we get into that, I'd just like you to demystify a few things, because we have seen how beautiful food would appear, especially in commercials, in ads, on reels on Instagram. There's just, I'm like, wow, that's so beautiful. But when I do it, I'm like, this is not the same thing. And then I got on this conspiracy thing and I went down a rabbit hole, and turns out that food photographers sometimes do not use actual food. And I felt so cheated. I was like, wow, what's this? So how exactly does that come about?
Well, yes, in the commercial sense, there, as a food stylist, so I'm going to break the two, is from food photography, like say on a set, you'll have a food photographer and a food stylist, and depending on what the project is, like what the market this product is going to, for example, let's say, I don't know if I can drop names, I don't know, let's just say, all right, let's say KFC, right? Styling chicken, or like a waffles kind of company. When you're working, when the set has like many moving parts, many different creatives, you'll have the set designer, the prop designer, the photographer, producer, all those things. Food is something that is perishable, so you will not be able to have like a fresh stack of pancakes lasting that long, and if you pour like honey or syrup on it, they'll sink. So of course, in that sense, things like motor oil or different other mechanical products are used
instead of cheese.
Glue. I mean, just so that it can withstand the time of like let's say the shoot is 8 hours or something. So syrup and pancakes on pancakes will not last for 8 hours. So yes, there's a bit of, can I say, cheating?
Deception. We'll just
it's not deception.
Yeah.
Let's just call it, it's makeup for food. However, I do not do that. I tend to work with the natural food only, because I feel like we've kind of moved into that space where consumers are going to a restaurant and they're like, I want that on the menu, and what you get is not that. So that can be,
people are pretty litigious this days.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I generally don't do that, but there's on bigger sets and bigger projects, people have to do that because time costs money, and all of that.
Okay. So what exactly is the distinction between a food photographer and a food stylist?
So basically, a food stylist handles the job of making the food look good at all times, and making the food, representing the food as natural as it can be to the desired consumer. And then a food photographer is the one who then handles the media side, the taking of the pictures and creating the mood board to then execute whatever project that has been, you know, whatever project they're doing. Yeah, so like I said, I do both jobs. So there are days I am just a food photographer, so I'm handling the lighting, I'm handling the set, I'm handling the camera settings, you know, there's a lot of all of that stuff. And then as the food stylist, all they will do is make sure that every time the photographer is ready to, you know, go to the next dish or shoot the next product, that they've either cleared the set and they style it, so they make it pretty, so that the food photographer doesn't have to move to do anything. Yeah.
Okay, we have really come a long way when it comes to careers, because 20, 30 years ago, nobody would have even thought that, you know, this is a thing. You can actually make money and make a living sustainably through such a career. So now, did you have such support when it came, especially to parents, from parents? You're saying, I want to be a food photographer, I want to be a food stylist. What was the reception, especially coming from people who grew up in an era where success meant you were an engineer, or a doctor or a pilot? Yeah.
Well, I'd like to think my career is pretty much self-made.
Yeah.
Of course, it existed, but at the time, so okay, just to backtrack a little bit, I studied industrial design. So when I finished school, you know, I was not going to be a doctor. I've always been a creative, so it was not science for me. So I did art and design, business studies, and English. So I was like, okay, what can I do with that? Which university am I going to go to? What am I going to study? I knew I wanted to design. So I was like, I'm either going to be a product designer or an architect, but that required to be good at maths. So that didn't happen. So I mean, I found industrial design and I really enjoyed that. So basically industrial design is like creating products that are aesthetic as well as functional for the human, for the end user at the end of the day. So there's a bit of product design, there's actually some photography, then there's the marketing. So you take the product from ideation, sketch, all the way to the production, actualization, materials, how does it feel in the consumer's hand. A good example I like to use is like, if you use Apple products versus like PC, you'll see that Apple really focus on industrial design, the finish, the color, the touch, how you interact with it. So, I mean, I studied that, and then moving back, I was like, well, in Kenya, what about which design firm am I going to work at as an industrial designer? So, before like my 3 years before I moved back, I started looking up food photography. And because I loved cooking, so like I said, I wanted to be a chef, and then I would be the one cooking for my housemates, and then my roommate said, she told me, why don't you start a blog? And I was like, a blog? You know, at that time, I used to look at Sharon Mundia's blog, so it was just fashion. Victor Peace, exactly. So I was just like, a food blog. I don't see food blogs by Kenyans. So I was just like, okay, fine, let me just take pictures and keep them on my laptop, whatever. That's what I did. But eventually, this passion came for cooking and taking photos, and then, like about a year before I moved back, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to pursue a career in food photography. I know there are not many in Kenya at the moment when I moved back, and I think there was only two. One is my friend, and there's another man who does food photography, commercial food photography. So, I mean, it was tough, like moving back, and you're not going into a job. You have to figure things out. So, for the first like 3 years, I don't think I had a proper food photography job. I did other types of photography, portrait, you know, all those others. But when I first landed my food photography job, my commercial job, it was just like, okay, there's a need for this. It was for like a calendar, you know, like the yearly calendars of dishes for a food company, and I was like, I think I'm doing the right thing.
So there's now the need to create things around. Now you're in Kenya now, so there's now the need to curate content that is consumable for Kenyans. So now finding yourself always creating content, always pitching yourself to people. How do you pitch yourself to people now?
Well, there's the basic marketing, there's the cold calling and emailing. But luckily, I focused on becoming so good at my craft that I managed to attract most of my clients. Like 80% of them came to me, and then the others either referral or me actually emailing them. So I would cook, I would shoot, I'd style and make it look beautiful, and I used to do recipes. So when I started my blog, I would post the images and free recipes for anybody. But my main aim was to become so good at photography so that I could get paid to do that. So right now food photography is everywhere. Everybody is on the gram, taking pictures of what they're eating, because it's also a way of interacting with one another. And I think food is one of those things that are it's a commodity that it's the same language. We all speak the same language. We all need to eat. We all experience birthdays, Christmas, whatever, around food. So it's something that I feel like will never disappear.
Okay. So you have clearly put in a lot of effort into honing your craft and just being the best at what you're doing. And while you're doing all of this, people come to you. Have you had an instance where a huge company approaches you, but instead of giving you actual money, which is what you should be getting, they say, can we just collaborate and just give you exposure? How do you deal with such scenarios? Because it happens a lot for content creators.
Exposure dollars. Okay, I'm going to say this with a pinch of salt, because it depends on where you are in your journey. And for me at the time, as a photographer, like maybe 10 years ago starting out, and a big company approached me and it's somebody who I really want to work with in the future or even now, I would try and get some kind of exchange, even if it's not monetary, like maybe have the contract be a little longer than 1 month so that we can get to know one another. So but right now in my career, I'm not working for exposure dollars. I feel like it can be a bit of a gray area, because you still want to respect each other's businesses. And at the end of the day, as the creative on our sides, you end up giving so much, and then the companies are either making money off of your work and they're benefiting and you're not. So you kind of just have to be cautious about that.
Okay, it's a very thin line, it's a very fragile space to be in. So now take us through the process of just creating everything. How there's the client who has set deliverables and a specific timeline. How do you juggle, especially when you're having multiple projects going on at once? How are you able to make sure that I'm giving A1 to all of these projects and they're all going to get to the clients at a specific time that's needed?
Communication is key. And then also understanding how much you can take on, because as entrepreneurs and as creatives, sometimes you just want a gig. You need to pay bills, you need to feed yourself, you need to get your business running, but you also need to know how much you can take on, because we are not machines, we're humans. So I try to make sure I don't do, because shoots are very labor intensive. You're on your feet for hours and hours and hours, and the next day you don't want to do anything. So if I'm doing like 2, maybe 3 maximum shoots in a week, in fact that's pushing it, so I just try and make sure I spread out the whole entire month. So if one client comes to me today, I'll book them in like next 2 days, and then another one comes maybe at the end of the week, it'll be the next week. So I try and spread them all out so that I'm not tired, and then also like
not overwhelmed.
Exactly. Because so the day of the shoot, the work doesn't end there. Even before the shoot, the work begins. We're going back and forth. Pre-production. Exactly. So I like to give at least 7 days in between each project to make sure I've met the deliverables and I deliver on time. And then if I'm late, I always make sure to communicate and let them know it's going to be 2 days late, or it's 80%, just need to do a few things.
You have mentioned that there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to what you do. You're collaborating with photographers, there's just a lot of moving parts involved. So there's a touch of human interaction going on. how does that go on? Do you need to be a people person to do what you do, or it's just not photography? You need human interaction.
You certainly need people skills.
Yeah.
I'm actually an introvert, so I'm introverted, extroverted. So like I tend to, like in the beginning stages when I'm getting to know somebody, I'm more reserved and I'm observing. But the longer I've done this, I've realized that you need to be out there talking about your craft and you know, marketing.
True, yes.
So you do need to have a level of people skills. I guess they call it soft skills. I think you do, because I've had instances where, like, when I first started out, you know, I butted heads with somebody and I took it so personal, and, you know, as creatives, we're so sensitive about our craft. So you're just like, oh my gosh, like, how can I make it better? But it was too late. Like, it's a big set, you know, things are moving, and if I wasn't able to deliver the way I wanted to, because of a little miscommunication from their side, and then, you know, it was a bit confusing.
Yeah.
But I think those soft skills really come in handy, especially when you're dealing with conflict and in the pre-production stages, where I tend to over-ask questions so that I'm never in that position ever again.
Yes.
Yeah, so you need to be able to do, you know, to have those people skills.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that, you know, 10 years ago, not many people were doing what you do. But right now, everyone with a smartphone and a bit of knowledge on how to use filters can really execute a good picture. Like, oh, that is really, really good.
Yeah.
So with that going on, there's the need for you to become better and more innovative. And we've seen people who have gone to drastic measures just to, you know, market food.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that you're always A1? You're always, you know, doing something that'll catch the eye of somebody without going over the top and it becomes just cringe. We don't want to see a naked woman holding a baguette. And you're like, you know, we have seen this ads. So how do you make sure that, you know, you're always doing your best? You're always, you know, producing quality of work that stands out to people, and at the same time, you're like, yeah, at least I didn't do that.
Well, I think that really comes with personal self-development as you grow in your career, and then understanding what your style is, what your aesthetic is, and what your boundaries are. Because at the end of the day, you have to kind of you have to have clear boundaries on what you will and will not do.
Yeah.
Because a marketing agency could come to you and they're like, we want you to do this, that, and the other, and it's, I don't know, against your brand values. Because at the end of the day, as a content creator now, you are a brand.
Yes.
So you have to you have to figure out what you're going to say no to and what you can push, you know, have some pushback on. So for me, I think I've just really tried to maintain a good quality product, so that is what I'm known for, because even if I'm a content creator, I'm more so known as a food photographer first before I'm doing the content creation. So I feel like I've created that niche for myself. Yeah. I'm not your everyday influencer who's doing TikTok memes, dancing, whatever. No, but I feel like creating a voice that's true to you is important.
Okay.
Yeah.
And take us through a typical day in your life, you know, from the process of you've sat down with a client, you've thought of the idea now, to the final execution of it all. How does that go about?
So yeah, it depends on what we're shooting. Again, if it's a food product, or if it's a product, like either cosmetic products or what do you call it, like condiments, like jam jars and whatnot. So, I mean, usually, I guess the conversation starts via email. I am a big email girl. Please don't WhatsApp. I mean, I like to keep track of the conversations, and then if we need to track back to something, we're like, okay, we discussed this earlier. So the conversation will start over email, because a lot of the times I don't see my clients physically. It usually is online first, unless we're working on a set where, you know, the client will be their agent and all that stuff. But for me, it's mainly they reach out via email or phone, and then I then get to understand what they want to achieve with their products. Then I do create a mood board. So I go, like, my source of inspiration, I go on Pinterest, check the Instagram as well.
See what's happening.
The whole internet, I scour everything.
Yeah.
And then I put together like a mood board for the client, and then I send it to them, and then they approve. And then we're able to book a shoot date, or 2, sometimes it can be 2 days. Then it's up to me now to execute. Also, they would send me the products, and then I would be able to kind of like budget. Like if it's a recipe, I have to budget for that, you know, what my cost is going to be for the ingredients, and then they will send me the product, which is covered by them. And then after that, it's pretty much me picking a shoot day when I will do the shoot, when I will do post-production, and when I will deliver. Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds hard.
I mean, it's a lot of work.
It really is.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where do you draw inspiration from your work? Who inspires your style that you've, you know, there are people you can look at their work, you can look at a specific photograph, and you can tell immediately who it is. So how did you come up with your style, and who are your inspirations?
I feel like my style is influenced by a lot of things. Let's see. Okay, definitely in food. I feel like my style is heavily influenced by the seasons. So because food is very seasonal, you know, we have the summer foods, the winter foods, and cold season, cold season foods. So it's heavily influenced by whatever is happening in the environment. And then it could be farmer's market. It could be like there's a new product in the supermarket, a new interesting vegetable. So sometimes I draw inspiration from the actual food itself. And then, of course, other times I'm on Instagram. I am an Instagram consumer, so I am scrolling. I'm seeing what other creatives are doing. I'm seeing what trends are, you know, currently happening. And then talking to people, as well as, you know, looking at online magazines. I feel pretty much. And then at the end of the day, it's what I want to eat.
True.
What I want to cook.
What's appealing to you will be to others.
Yeah, is a source of inspiration as well.
And speaking of inspiration, I don't know, you are on Instagram, so you've seen this tea. We're talking about Chebet Rono saying that Kate actress actually took the auntie character, you know, from her. And I'm just thinking, but, you know, where did you draw inspiration for your auntie character? We've all had an auntie, and it was relatable to most people because we have had such an auntie. So for somebody to say, "Ay, that's my work, you're stealing from me," it was a bit absurd.
Wait, it's real? I thought it was a joke.
No,
is it a joke? It's real.
It's real.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now there's drawing inspiration, and there's not people just full on stealing your
plagiarism.
work. Have you experienced that?
Absolutely.
Where somebody will just take a picture and pass it off as their own?
Yes.
Wow.
I have. I mean, at the time I was salty. Now this was earlier in my career, maybe let's say seven years ago. So when I was starting out, and you know, as a photographer, you're sensitive. You want to copyright everything. You're like, it's your hard work.
It is.
So now when somebody is just stealing your images, you're like, hold up, excuse me? Like, where do you even start? I'm like, do I ask you to take it down, or am I going to ask you to pay me? Like, where do we even start that conversation? And at the time, like creative law, that's another thing that, like, as creatives, we have to protect ourselves, and we need lawyers. We need to lawyer up. So, I mean, at the time, I was just like, there's no way I'm talking to a lawyer, because, you know, just like the whole career thing where there's doctors, all these lawyers, not a lot of them did creative law. So that's a whole other niche. So trying to tell somebody that this is my intellectual property right, they've stolen it, how can I get it back? Do I get paid for it? I mean, at that time, I was just like, I wrote them an email, and I think they said they would take it down, but they never did. So I just got tired. I was just like, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it. But I think because it was in early stages of my career, there wasn't too much weight. It's a bit shocking because you're like, somebody's actually stealing in front of my face.
Yes. It is theft.
Stealing in front of your face.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe now, with the knowledge that I have, if that was to happen, then I have the right tools to be able to then pursue. Yeah, but I mean, I'm all about, don't steal. Imagine, just
don't steal.
Get inspiration, don't steal.
You know, food, it's one thing to steal food. I'm also salty because there are people who have actually taken my pictures from Instagram and create their own accounts using my pictures. So now people just straight up talking to people
exactly
thinking it's me.
You.
Don't stop stealing from creatives. Stop doing that. It's not nice.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
Yeah. And I think those are some of the challenges you actually experience. So apart from that, what are the hardships or the downs that you've experienced so far?
Many. Many. As creatives, I keep referring to, as a creative, I feel like mainly the financial aspect of things, because your job is not exactly, it's not the 9 to 5. You will not have a gig every month.
Yes.
So you'll have some dry seasons, some seasons where you're so busy until you're so tired. So it's like it's a caveat.
Yeah.
There's good and bad. So I think the consistency of actually being a businesswoman has been the most challenging, because yes, I can get up and take pictures and cook and do all those things, but then is it an actual running business? Making it to be an actual running business, I think, has been the difficult part, because there's, you have to market yourself.
True.
You have to put yourself out there, and then you also have to have money to do, the recipes. Like, let's say you're having a dry month, where are you getting ingredients from?
Maybe we're eating noodles
there's
all month.
Indomie all day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the financial aspect, I think, is what has been the most challenging, after COVID and everything. And then also, equipment is not cheap. So when people fuss about the rate,
like, do you know the price of a softbox?
Thank you. The softbox, camera, editing software, all those things. And then I feel like the second most challenging thing was maybe now the mental space. Maybe because of not having that structure of a 9 to 5, like you don't really have somebody to answer to. You are your own boss.
Yes.
So being willing to wake up in the morning to want to do it sometimes can be tough. So I feel like the mental health aspect of it, it's not for the faint-hearted. Being an entrepreneur. I think those are the main two that I can think of at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've covered that. So what is the upside? There has to be a rewarding side to your career.
I mean, the food.
Yes. Obviously.
The food for sure.
Yeah.
And then also meeting different creatives has been really rewarding for me. I've made some really, really good friends in the same industry who we became friends, and then we've worked with together on set. And then I think at the end of it, looking at a product that you've created, or like photos that you've taken, at the end of it, looking at it and seeing it hanging up on a wall, or being part of a campaign, and you're like, wow, I created that. It's beautiful. So I think that is the most emotionally rewarding part.
Yeah.
And then when the money is good, it's good.
It is. It truly is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you say sets your style apart? What sets the food photography and the food styling you do from many others?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a little bit of a hard question.
What's unique about your style?
Okay. Okay, so in like food photography, there is, when you look at my work, I try to evoke emotion. I think this now comes from my background as an industrial designer. I'm thinking about the end user. I'm not just putting the plate there, setting up the lights and taking a picture. I'm trying to create a feeling. So I think the thing that sets me apart is that I really focus on how you're going to feel when you're looking at that bowl of pasta. Like, are you sitting next to the window, or are you at the dining table? I try to recreate those scenes that you would have at home, so that you can imagine yourself eating that bowl of pasta, and it not just being a pretty picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of psychology that goes behind food. So don't blame me, please. Do not blame me. Yeah. People like Sylvia are just behind there, making sure I eat it. And as we're winding up, what's your parting shot?
My parting shot. Ooh. Okay.
What do you want to tell us before you leave?
I would absolutely say chase your dreams, no matter what.
Yeah.
I know there can be many obstacles, but if you're passionate about something and you know that you can probably make money from it, don't give up on it. Because I would have, moving back home, I would have given up on like my dream of being a food photographer, and it's opened up so many doors, like from maybe being a content creator, maybe even being a TV host, which I recently just did for food. So I feel like if you have that passion for something, don't ignore it, and just take time to nurture it, whatever it is. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we need to create from a place of joy.
Yes. And
I feel like if a lot of us or more of us are happy in what we do, the world will be a better place.
True. That's
very true. Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you on socials?
So I am at Dine with Jamutai on Instagram, Twitter, on all socials, Dine with Jamutai.
Yeah.
And then you can check out my website, dinewithjamutai.com, where I upload recipes and, stories about my food musings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
From real estate to food photography to medicine, we will always cover the women in business who are killing it and are actually making very impactful decisions and leading very impactful lives, and we're very grateful for them. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
My name is Tarife, and I'll see you next week.